Hey, it's From the West Barn with Joe West and...
The theme song went away. Mike Shimshack.
Sorry. No,
We tried again, or we just this live television?
It's fitting. It's
All
fitting. Today, we're with Shawn Hudgins.
Woohoo!
Videographer, friend, ultimate, what do you call those guys? Pragmatist.
Guru.
Yeah, you could send him out into the woods with a couple of wax-coated matches, and he'd come back 10 years later, and there'd be a civilization. So welcome, Shawn.
Thank you. How are you guys?
We're great. All right, Shawn. We were talking off camera, and we'll want you to continue. Why do people's videos suck, like you said?
Way to put me on the spot there.
No, they don't.
I have no recollection of that conversation.
Shawn never said that, by the way.
So not Shawn. It's amazing.
We are here today to talk about how important video is. I mean, if you aren't seen on video, you don't exist, right? If you're a band, if you're an artist, if you're a Instagram star, if you're a Snapchat person, if you're not on video on someone's phone, you don't exist. So it's become an incredibly necessary, I don't want to say format, but a necessary link in the chain for people who need to maintain priority on people's radar. So it's really interesting. You know, it's like you don't see anyone talking about it. You don't see, other than if you start to dig in, like if we get into guitars, you start seeing guitar videos come up on your feed. Get into cameras, they do start coming up. But there's not really a conversation about like, hey, what does it take to be at that certain level? It's like, okay, there's times when people will need to call Shawn Hudgins and have him come out and make some sort of content for him. But the vast majority of the time, they just need to not screw up, right? So how does that work? What is the threshold for that? What is the gear for that? How does somebody do their part in representing themselves on their phones and other people's phones and tablets? How do they get to the point where they're able to do that? And then when do they call you? You know, what we want to cover today is a vast amount of topics. Now, Shawn, I've used Shawn on a bunch of shoots. Mike has used Shawn on a bunch of shoots. And I'll say the one thing, speaking because you won't say this about yourself, is that he's the easiest person to be around and probably one of the most competent people in the room. So usually that usually ends up with somebody who's got a giant ego and is maybe a little bit of a pain in the ass to deal with. But you're the exact opposite, which is like, okay, super proficient, super good, and then his ego is literally zero. He's the easiest person to be around. So if this podcast is probably probably more for artists who are going to need video, right? And how to help them facilitate what they can do on their own and what they need to call a guy like you for. But it's also for guys in the video field that are saying, hey, how does a guy like that work when I don't work? How come I'm not working? My video looks great. Well, big cue to that is what me and Mike have been saying about the music business forever, which is, hey, don't be an asshole. Be fun to be around. Be a good hang, right?
Right.
So you've mastered that.
It's not hard. It's not that hard. You just have to just be nice. You know, you show up and have fun doing it. You know, at some point, if you're not careful, it becomes so much work that you start to not like it. So you just have to have fun and show up. And I'm always honored to be there. You know, I'm honored that I get called to be there, you know, for these moments, because I don't know what these might become. You know, this artist I'm working with, they could be the next, you know, huge band one day. And for me to have been a part of that in the beginning is, you know, monumental.
I had a conversation the other day so Shawn basically captured everything about the band I've been working with on the outside. He did all of the content stuff as well as the music videos. And I had a talk with the manager, Amy, the other day. And she said, without Shawn's content, the way he captured the content, we would not have what we have. It's that simple. Like it captured their personalities in a way. I think part of it, to your point, Joe, is that Shawn is so easygoing that people just drop their guard around him and they forget he's even there, which is, well, ultimately I know what Shawn's going for. Just forget I'm here. Just do your thing, you know? And we attribute a lot of the success of this band to what Shawn did.
Mike was telling me recently that the OTO project, the guys between their band account and the individual members, because once folks follow the band, they start finding the members they follow. There's 17 million followers, and they have over 2 billion views. So what people are always looking for, like, oh, it's got to go viral. But the reality is you just have to have a bunch of good, compelling content. Going viral, I think, is one of those things like having a hit record. It's outside of your control, right? I mean, it happens when it happens. I mean, if you're there and the hillside slides away and you happen to have your cell phone on it, you're going to have a viral video, right? Or a volcano goes off. But barring that, you know, as an artist, it's just about putting out a lot of really good content, and content that doesn't feel cooked. Content. Shawn and I were talking the other day on the phone about, like, oh, isn't it interesting that some of the most cinematic and best images that we see get the least amount of views? Band goes in, makes really high-end video, and then puts it out and gets 100 views. But the behind-the-scenes making of the video, where you feel like, oh, this is done on a cell phone, but this guy might fall off the balcony, or it's a tightrope walk, where you feel like there's some aspect where it's actually not a cooked situation, will get 10,000 views or 100,000 views or 1 million views. So it's interesting. You need to have good content, but then again, you've got to have the feeling that there's some moment that is unplanned, right? And there's a little bit of danger involved in it. You know, why don't you tell us a little bit about, like, what you think makes good content whenever you're working with an act? And you've worked with lots of acts that you've shot videos that have gone on to have millions and millions of views. So what do you think the recipe for that is?
Oh, that's the magic question right there. Excuse me. That's a really tough one to answer, but I mean, they got to be real. You know, the people that are watching it want to connect to that artist. So they want to feel like they know them. And if it looks too planned out or too, like you say, cooked, then people just don't really connect to it as well. So I think the artist has to really make a connection to their fans. And it doesn't matter if that's, you know, on their cell phone or on a cinema camera, you know, on a planned shoot, as long as they make that connection and seem real to the fans. And it's a tough one, you know. Sometimes there's just a magic recipe there that just happens, you know, that you don't even plan. You know, there's an organization I'm the cinematographer for in Cincinnati, you know, and we work with kids up to 18 years old. And they're prodigy kids that we bring in from all over the U.S. And, you know, those videos, you know, sometimes I have an hour to shoot an entire music video. We'll shoot, you know, 16 music videos in one day. So they're not the best video you could shoot, but they get millions of views because they're kids. I mean, they're, you know, 7 years old to 18 years old, and they are playing like they're the biggest pros out there. And people just completely connect to that. And they want to share it. They want their friends to see it. And so you start to see it go viral.
I have a hypothesis about this. It's like Mike was telling me about our mutual friend. He's been on the podcast, Brent Shuttleworth. And Brent decided to get rid of his apartment because he was always on the road. So he got a Sprinter van. He's living in a Sprinter van. And I'm like, immediately I was like, oh my God, that is like, it's almost like you've got to be a really great artist or a really great painter or a really great action dude that, you know, adrenaline junkie that goes and surfs big waves. You got to have something super compelling about you. But then you have to have this other thing that's just a little bit weird. It's like, for me, it's like Brent living in a van. I'm thinking to myself, oh man, I'd really like to see that. And it's like, I would tune in half because it was just a little bit odd. Like, oh, wait a minute. There's one of those meerkats on the top of someone's car about to reach in and feed the guy's going to feed him a walnut. I'm like, I want to see what's going to happen next. Brent living in a van, it's like, I have to know what is about to happen. So I think that it's like you need to have, and I used to call it in the music business, I used to call it having like handles on your record. Like you have to have something for people to grab onto. So like all the hooks you would put into a song, or all the unique things about Cyndi Lauper's voice or Alison Krauss's voice. Those are things that people can hang on to, right? And we need that in your imagery. There has to be, you can't just say, I'm a really good guitar player and I'm going to sit here and play my guitar for you. You need to do it hanging upside down from your balcony, not that that's it. Or you need to do it on a subway car. You need to do it at, in the national park system somehow on the side of Yosemite. There's something about it that my brain, when I'm scrolling, needs to see like that extra +1. You know what I'm saying? That's just some interesting aspect of it. And while you can never know what's going to take something viral or make it a big video, it's like, okay, we do know that you just can't be great at one thing. It's the kids that are really great as virtuosos. And then they play like heavy metal music, which is like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't anticipate that.
Absolutely. That catches people by surprise when they turn it on, and then that first note is hit and they're like, oh, wait, they're really good. It grabs their attention, hooks them, and they're going to watch the entire video, And we even have, because we do mostly cover songs, so most of the time the original artist sees the videos and they share them as well. So, of course that helps carry them on and become almost viral. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just like with everything else, there's so much noise that you have to poke through somehow. And so when people are scrolling their, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, you got to have something that captures their eye right away. I mean, instantly, because they're scrolling through just lists, one after the other. So what's going to make them stop and go, oh, wait, I want to see that, Yeah. And so, independent artists, it's hard, because, can you afford to hire people to shoot all this content? Because you need constant content. So you would have to have a videographer on payroll almost to create the amount of content that an artist would need as an independent to rise above. So that's almost impossible as an independent artist. So you really have to learn some of this yourself. You got to, YouTube is so vast and there's so much information out there. If they're willing to sit down and do some research and just figure out, what can I do to make my videos a little bit better? Yeah, I'm using my iPhone. But that's okay. What can I do to step it up just to that next level,
What do you recommend? That's actually a good question. Like for somebody just starting out that maybe needs to create enough content that they can't hire somebody like yourself. It's prohibitively expensive. What do you suggest? iPhone, what editing programs, is iMovie cool to do this? Does it what does somebody need to do this?
Absolutely.
Entry level.
Entry level. I mean, really the video editing, it can be very simple. I mean, it can be that app on your iPhone. It can be iMovie. Most of the videos that we are creating, as filmmakers, we're not doing a lot of fancy, editing and fancy transitions. We're just doing hard cuts, which are simple to do in iMovie or any app on your phone. So I don't think, they got to get crazy with their video editing right away. Use an iPhone. But most of us know this and we're learning it every day, but lighting is key. That will take your video from looking just like a home movie to, being more cinematic. And so I think if they will learn the aspects of lighting, simple lighting, what can I do? Like, oh, hey, I didn't realize during the day, if I go over here by my window, there's all this natural light coming in and I can light myself better. And that's going to make the video look, 10 times better right away.
Or if you're outside, it's like, oh, why don't I just turn 180 degrees and I'll have the sun to my face, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Instead of the sun behind me blowing out the camera, Yeah, so it's just little simple things like that, but you just have to, research enough. And the second thing is audio. I mean, you can have the most produced video in the world with horrible audio, and it's just not going to be very captivating. But you could have this shaky iPhone footage that the person has a lapel mic or a good shotgun microphone, and people are going to watch it because the audio is good.
So what do they need to get great audio? Can't they just use their iPhone in most cases?
In a lot of cases, you can use the iPhone, but you have to be careful about the distance. You know, how far am I from the iPhone? The further away, the more that room sound you're going to get. So you may
let's say
that.
Most people are going to be taking their own video. So, and I don't know if they've fixed this or not, but the iPhone camera that faces you used to be a lower resolution than the one that faced away. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but
I think it's still the case. I think it's still a little less.
720 or something?
Yeah, it's always a little less than the front camera.
But okay, so people, let's say their iPhone can cover 70% of the action they're going to need in their lives. It probably can, right? And I
believe so.
And with good light, an iPhone looks fantastic.
Absolutely.
It looks stellar.
It does. The thing you're not going to capture with the iPhone that you're going to capture with professional cameras is that separation, that blurred background. So I can get a really shallow depth of field, meaning that if I focus on your face, then 2 feet behind you is blurred out. Right. And so that's going to be a big difference between shooting like on iPhone and versus, professional camera is one of the big, differences.
Right. So, but let's just distill this real quick. So if 70% of their lives can be handled by their iPhone and trying to make sure there's enough light to shoot, right? And if they're holding it, they're going to have probably good enough audio to accomplish a task because it'll be close enough, be arm's length away. What are some of the other tools that they need? Like if you bought a little drone that is affordable, right? You can get a fantastic drone. I mean, $1,000 is expensive, but you can get yourself a drone for under $1,000, like $799, and then a couple batteries. You're up maybe at $1,000. That will take your videos to the next, not just the next level, but the level after the next level after that. You can get these establishing shots where you're coming in over a forest or coming in out of the sea, and then you're on a hillside. So it really is like bang for your buck, a little drone that can get some really good images. And Shawn and I shot this documentary with Gabe Adams, where we went to Utah, and we collected some of maybe the prettiest video I've ever been a part of, right? In some of these landscapes, and Utah is gorgeous. But we did it with a camera that was, with a drone that was under $1,000. And the images that came out of it were just uncompromising. They could go into a feature film. So it's like in that, just because telling that story that we were trying to tell with Gabe, without having the large scale of establishing a shot, coming in over a mountain range or over a gorge and seeing us riding on this mountainside and flying over us and panning, that's a much less compelling story. So for me, the first thing I would buy after an iPhone would be maybe you buy one of those little handheld stabilizers for your iPhone. But then the very next thing after that would be a drone. Do you agree with that, or what's your thoughts?
That's a tough question, but I mean, I could completely see that adding a lot more flavor to the video. And like you said, you really need that establishing shot. So if I'm watching a video and I see just a static shot of that person, and you see an interesting backdrop, you're like, where are they? Sometimes I'm even looking in the details, like for like some text to tell me like where was the location. But when you have that establishing shot flying in, like we did with the canyons and the rivers and stuff like that, it adds so much to the video. And you're right. I mean, for $1,000, you can get a drone that takes amazing video. So it's not a huge investment, but the other part of that investment is the time learning how to fly it. They're not hard, but you definitely got to learn how to be still with it, not be too erratic.
To anyone whose parents ever bought them a drone when they were a kid, it's not like flying that at all, which is like take it off and then it's like literally dives into the nearest bush. It's not at all like that. Like the drones that we have, you let go of the controller and it just hovers. It's all GPS coordinated. But what Shawn's talking about is like just sort of setting up a shot. The one thing that I learned from flying drones, and watching a guy that Shawn turned me on to on YouTube was like, he never takes his drone off without knowing exactly the shots he's going to take. You don't just take a drone off and start taking pictures or taking video. You say, oh, I want to get this Ford coming in from the sea, and I want to get it coming up and over it a couple of passes. I want to get going left to right. I want to get it backing away and going up. And then you just sort of have a shot list together. But they're very simple to fly. It's just the really getting the shots to look good and compelling on camera. You have to learn quite a few things. So let's say you say, okay, you need an iPhone or a camera like a Samsung that has a really great camera in it. And that's going to cover 70%. Let's say, what do you think the next purchase is for somebody trying to shoot their own content?
I really think it comes down to the microphone, some type of a mic. It can be as simple as, one of those clip-on lavs. Yeah, or that little pack right there. We use those so much. Made by Tascam. That little recorder records to an SD card by itself.
Right. So let me show them the...
Yeah, I'll let you show.
Little lapel mic. Wait a minute, that's the end that goes into this guy. And then you got a little lapel, so it looks just like every lav that everyone wears on television. But instead of going to some wireless unit in a truck somewhere, it goes to a micro SD card that sits in here. So it records right to this pack. And tell them about the levels, what it does, Shawn.
Yeah, so that little Tascam is great because your other option is either to have a lapel mic plugged directly into your iPhone, but of course now you're tethered, you have a cable connecting. In a lot of cases that could work, but in this case, that's going to free you up to where the recorder is clipped on your belt, put in your pocket, and you're recording your audio separate from the iPhone. The biggest caveat to that's going to be you're going to have to sync that audio to the video in post, in editing. It's
backwards on the screen. So it's a Tascam DR-10L. And they cost about how much?
That's like $200.
Okay. And I know that's like, we're talking about a lot of money to people that are just young and trying to do stuff, but there's a bit of a minimum that's like, don't waste your money on the cheap stuff. So if you spend these $200, these are $200 you'll never have to spend again. This will last you a lifetime. It's that kind of product, right? And what
Absolutely.
I don't know if you said this because I was packing up the mic, but it records two signals, one at a hotter level and then one down about 10 decibels so that you have the safety copy. So if someone starts screaming in the middle of an interview and you didn't get the levels right, well, then you've got the safety copy and you can go to the lower version.
It's an amazing feature.
Yeah.
Great idea. Amazing idea.
And keep in mind, if you do have a lapel that goes to your iPhone, it's tethered, it's an issue. I have issues that when I'm trying to record voice memos when we're writing songs, if somebody calls me, it just shuts off the voice memo. It's just not as rock solid. This thing, when we were on the road shooting that documentary, we'd roll them for 6 hours at a time, 5 or 6 hours straight of just recording, maybe even longer. And then you get back and it's just there. So it's rock solid. So, okay, so 70% is your iPhone, and then you've got this, which once you do start to do, it brings the editor into mind, because now you've got an audio file, and it's separate than your video file. Everyone's like, oh my God, now I'm a video engineer, and I don't know how to do this. But it is very simple. If you have a program like Final Cut Pro, or if you have Adobe Premiere, you just put it in, and you say, hey, sync these up, and it will do it.
Absolutely.
You'll find that a program like iMovie is one of these programs that as soon as you get into it, it's like every point, every corner in that program had them trying to sell you the pro version of it, which is Final Cut Pro.
Absolutely.
So it's not that easy to working for long.
Yeah, it works for a little while, but you're right. Then you start hitting those corners. You're like, oh, I want to sync audio or little things like that you find, oh, wait, it doesn't really do that. But sometimes you can find workarounds. If you look on YouTube, somebody's like, oh, hey, here's a workaround.
Sooner or later, the philosophy for all those little free programs is like, hey, how do we get them compelled to upgrade to the full version? And let's say you have 3 of these.
Oh.
And you shoot for 5 hours all day, and you shoot a bunch of video, and then you could do that in Final Cut Pro. We'll sync all 3 of them to the same video file. So, okay, so we're talking about an iPhone, and let's face it, an iPhone's expensive. It's what? $700-800 for an iPhone.
At least, yeah, minimum.
So
I mean,
all these people that say they can't.
1,000.
All these people that say they can't afford something, they have already got an $800 investment in their pocket. So let's, if video is that important to you, you got to find a way to readjust your sticker shock and buy a cheap. So to get an affordable setup, it's like, okay, you got your $800 iPhone. You've got your $200 microphone. So we're at $1,000. What's the next thing you buy after your microphone? Oh, you got software. How much is software? We'll say is $300.
Yeah, I mean, $200 to $300, you could step up to Final Cut, and that's like a one-time purchase. If you want to go Adobe Premiere or something like that, that's cloud-based subscription now to where, you're paying something like $50 a month or something like that. But you get, Premiere and Photoshop and After Effects, a lot of tools, but that means you're going to spend a lot of time learning too. So, but $200 to $300, you could do Final Cut Pro.
So we're at $1,300. What's the next thing you buy?
Lighting. You're going to always hit this roadblock where lighting is almost everything. You can take the cheapest camera and you can make it look great if you get the lighting right. And so you got to find lights that, work for your setup. If you're shooting close to yourself, you don't need as big of a light, as powerful of a light, but you really want to go for that soft light, which you hear people talk about all the time. So you want it to not be so harsh, like a bare bulb, just is so harsh on your skin. You see all these crazy shadows. You use something to diffuse that light. So just like that window that's to your left there, Joe. Yeah. So like, if you put white curtains across it, just something to filter that light is going to soften it and just make it more pleasing to the eye.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
It's a difference between having one of those light bulbs where you could see the filament and then one that has a soft white frosting on the outside.
That's a perfect example.
The soft white frosting is made to like, hey, let's make this a little bit like diffused. Let's like shine it through a sheet so it's not as like blurry, So a light like if you have an iPhone, how do you do they make lights for the iPhone that aren't just that blurry little LED on the front?
That's hard. Most of those ones that are camera mounted are pretty harsh. I mean, they're better than nothing in some cases, but you're right. They make little diffusers you can put on them, but they work okay depending on the situation. If I was an artist and I was on tour, or like we were talking about Brent Shuttleworth being in his van traveling, in cases like that, it's probably easier to pop a light on the iPhone, and you're doing selfie video, so you're holding it up, it would work in that case. But if I was an artist, like, hey, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do a little acoustic set for everybody. In those cases, that light on the iPhone is probably not powerful enough. It could be, but it may be a little harsh. So that might be where I want a light, 45 degrees off, 2 or 3
But do they
feet
have
away.
a light that would be like, wouldn't it be great if they had like a light that was like the back of your iPhone, right? So the back in the whole thing would be like a Luxley light,
Yeah.
like this whole surface would be like a diffuse that you could color correct. And I mean, it'd be such a cool little solution. And so many people shoot with this, which Shawn also mentioned something that's pretty interesting. So like when you're shooting at somebody like this, you don't necessarily want the light coming from camera.
Right.
That makes you look super flat with light coming right from the angle. What you really want is like, if I'm shooting, you want the light about 45 degrees off coming in, either on this way or this way. Usually not both ways. You want to have a little bit of shadow, like you see the fall off on my face, where it's like brighter, and then this adds like scale and dimension. And on Shawn's face, you can see his light's coming from this way.
Over here.
Yeah.
What about mine?
Yeah. Mike's
Let's
basement.
It's coming from his feet. I can't tell.
From above.
He's got one of those, like the scary, where you at the campfire you'd hold the flashlight under your chin.
Flashlight.
Right. I had the mystery to the From the West Barn podcast.
So we're at about $1,300 worth of equipment, and you could probably cover at least 80% of your needs, maybe 90% of your needs with just that. And then, of course, you could buy those little Osmos that are on a stick, right? The little eyeball that goes and follows you, and really smooth. A gimbal, they call those. And what's one of those cost?
Well, if I was going that route, I would actually look at the gimbals that you put your iPhone on or your smartphone on. Those are probably $200 or $300. and you just clip your iPhone in there, and now, you got the stick you hold, and it stabilizes that video, and makes it really smooth. And that's going to work in a lot of your cases. I mean, there's some, videos we shoot, we want that hand movement, the handshake, but for the majority of the stuff, it's going to smooth that footage out and just make it not so distracting.
All right. So you say, from what we've talked about here, we've got a camera, we've got a microphone, which I think is a little bit of a luxury considering most of the stuff you shoot on your own, you probably won't need a microphone for, right? But then we have an editor, a DAW, not a DAW, but a video editor on your computer, like Final Cut or Premiere. So we're at $1,300 there. What is there a next purchase before you start? Is the drone the next purchase? If you're just a girl doing TikTok videos, you don't need a drone.
No, not at all.
But we're talking about somebody's trying to tell a story. And once you start to try to tell stories, you need to say, hey, in like a Stranger Things, where am I at? I'm in this town, as they flying over the forest, right? Or they come up to this big, the big building that they had the creature in. You need to say, we are here on the earth. This is where our story is taking place as you come into it. But if you're an artist, and you're trying to do a music video or do anything that's compelling, if you're playing in the middle of a field, and you've got this aerial shot, it really does give some sense of space to it. So is there anything before the drone that you would put in?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, lighting and audio and the camera are the three.
Well, what's the light? What light would you recommend for them?
That's a hard question. There are so many lights out there. I would definitely find a light. LED is going to be probably your better option, just because it's better with power, so it doesn't burn the batteries up so fast. Because you're really going to want probably one that can run on batteries, so you can be more mobile. But you have to be careful with LED lights, because the cheap ones just don't have a great light quality to them, and some of them will even flicker. You'll start watching your video after you shot it on the computer, and you see these lines on your video, or you see just flickering. So you don't want to completely cheap out. So you want to get a decent quality LED light, but you want to be able to modify that light. So yeah, I'm finding a light that's, just a little larger than the iPhone, but can I attach a softbox, which the softbox will control the direction of the light as well as soften the light with diffusion material.
What is the Luxley's an expensive light, isn't it?
The Luxley lights that we have they're a little expensive. They do put them on sale occasionally for a couple $100. Mm-hmm. But the light has so many options, as you know. It's, I don't know the exact size of it, but it's
a little bigger than a rearview mirror.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Like a rearview mirror, and it's LED. You can control the intensity of it, so you can dim it from 0 to 100. And you can control the color. You can dial in any color in the spectrum that you want.
They used it on the Doritos commercial, and they wanted to get the color of the Doritos bag, so they took a picture of it, and this light has this little preset where you could select a picture and a color in that picture, and it will match it on the light, which is very cool. But, I think I bought that on your recommendation, and I got it on sale, and it was a couple $100.
Yeah, it was like $200.
Let's say you do that. So now you're at $1,500, and you probably have, and I know $1,500 is not cheap, but if this is what you're doing for your career, and you're going to keep in mind, you're going to be on the internet competing with everyone else to have a striking image. This is not the end of the world. You see people that complain about that, but then again, they do have the $700 cell phone. So it's like you have to adjust your thinking a little bit. And at this rate, and I think it's really interesting that you say, hey, use your iPhone. Don't go buy the Osmo or this little gimmicky camera or a GoPro. And those things are great for certain things, but the image out of the iPhone can compete with a cinema camera in a certain kind of shot, right? Not every shot.
Yeah, not every shot, but certain shots, yeah.
So, but come on, this is much better. I was just watching this documentary about the 1992 riots, and a lot of that was on people shooting beta cams in the street. And it was like, I think that's a person there. Like, it's like looking at old Sasquatch videos, it's like going through for like the resolution was so low, and now we've got this camera and this guy here. You put it up, you shoot it, and it's like it's a compelling image that is as sharp and as resolute as a cinema camera with certain criteria as being all things considered the same. Out on a sunny day with the right, with the right thing in frame. So okay, so Shawn says cell phone would more than do it. Get the next purchase after that was a microphone for $200, which
Yes.
isn't the end of the world if you don't have it. You could probably get 80% of your videos done with your cell phone, right? A DAW, not a DAW, but what would you call that? A nonlinear editor.
Yeah, nonlinear editor. Yeah.
Like Final Cut Pro for $300. We're going to use that as our budget. And then the next thing you buy is some lighting for about $200. So we're at $1,500. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. Where they're going to get you on a lot of these things are batteries. All those little accessories start to add up. So you have to throw a little bit in for like batteries and chargers if you don't already have them.
Yeah. So let's say 1750, another $250. For $1750, you have got a video solution that will cover 80 to 90% of the videos, probably 90% of the videos you need to shoot. Because let's face it, right?
Yeah.
90% of the videos that you need to be compelling online could be done for $1,750 at a really high level. And did that include a gimbal stabilizer?
The gimbal, yeah, I said the gimbals are usually about $200 or $300. I think we included that.
Okay. If it isn't, we're at $2,000, which
$2,000.
is a lot of money. $2,000 is a lot of money, but it's really the least you can spend to do this at a level that you don't have to worry about paying for the crimes of buying cheap disposable gear that are going to ruin your shot and let you down in the middle of a shoot, right? So,
and that's an important statement there, because I'm sure you as well as I have tried to cut corners before and purchase, the cheaper stuff. Does it work? Yeah, it works. Is it reliable? I don't know. It may fail right in the middle of something. I can't rely on it. So rather than buying a bunch of cheap stuff that fails after 3 months, and I'm throwing more stuff in the landfill, more plastic everywhere, I prefer to spend a little bit more and get something that's reliable and good quality that's going to work for me.
And you're not talking, the gear you're talking about is not the Rolls Royce level.
No, not
this
at
is
all.
just the Honda Civic, Toyota Camry, show up every day, turn it on and drive it kind of gear.
Absolutely.
But totally pro gear that is like, this is like the most frugal way to do this at a high reliability and high quality. So if you're willing to find, and you don't have to buy all, you buy them one at a time. You put the microphone off if it's not your top priority. If you're able to, let's say most of your video is shot handheld away, elbows length away, you prioritize this, and by the end of 2 years, you've got all this equipment, but you're still making videos from your cell phone from the very first day. And that's like, I think half of what people need from a guy like you. It's like, okay, you can shoot. Getting your drone's license. Do you have your drone license yet?
Almost, yeah.
So you're getting a drone license as a pilot. He's shooting on everything from cinema grade stuff down to consumer level stuff. This is the kind of guy that if I had my dad was buddies with, I'd be like, hey, what should I use to shoot my YouTube videos? You're that guy, right? And this is a very pragmatic solution list. If I'm someone that wants to create and generate content, it's like, okay, it's $2,000. That hurts a little bit. But it's something that once I get this, I can bang out videos at a high level for the foreseeable future, right? And then go ahead.
Yeah, you have to think that way, because this is an investment. And so you're investing in your career. I mean, if that's your chosen path to be an artist, you have to put some kind of investment into it. And you either spend $2,000 on your own equipment and cover, like you said, 80 to 90% of your videos, so that you can consistently be putting out content, because that's what this world has turned into. You have to be consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be once a week, but it better be every week, like on the schedule, because people start to, want that, and they get used to that schedule. So you have to be very consistent. So if that means that, I have to spend $2,000, which like you said, it can be over time, then that's what needs to be done. Because, I mean, what's the alternative? You have to hire somebody like me or another videographer to come in And that adds up real quick because it's very time consuming.
And keep in mind, like back in the era of Johnny Carson shoots, you know, where it was like big band, and if it's like when you wanted to make a record, you went to the biggest studio and they had an orchestra there. Like that wouldn't even get the craft service up and running, $2,000, you know? So let's be thankful. This is like, it's unprecedented times. You have so much creativity. The limitation is in your mind. It's not what you have. I've read this book. Rory Feek gave me this. We had shot a video, a live performance video at my barn, and you helped me with that 5-camera shoot, all like 10 cameras at 4K and audience and a jib and all this craziness. And when Rory found out how we shot that, you know, it looked really ultra pro. When Rory found out how we shot it, he's like, I'm going to buy you this book. It's called Rebel Without a Crew. And he's like, how did you shoot this? I'm like, it was just me and my friends, you know, Shawn and me, and then a couple of the interns from the studio. And we rented like one camera, right? From lensrental.com or lensrental.com.
Lensrentals.com. Yeah. I think we rented one camera.
And one camera top, like display screen. So, it was who was it? Richard Rodriguez or Robert
Rodriguez.
And he did the Once Upon a Time in Mexico, the trilogy. El Mariachi was the first one. Once Upon a Time in Mexico, and the really big one with Antonio Banderas in it.
Antonio Banderas.
I wish I could remember it. But Brad Pitt was in the one with Once Upon a Time in Mexico. And Desperado, was it maybe? I'm not sure. But so he shot this really big trilogy. The first one, which was El Mariachi, he shot on a camera. It's like a handheld, whatever. What is the millimeter, 8 millimeter, whatever?
Oh, like the old 16 millimeter reel cameras? Yeah.
And, you know, he went and bought these color-corrected light bulbs from the photo store.
Oh, my gosh.
And they went to Mexico and shot this thing, and, like, they would literally go into this jail cell and say, hey, can we use a jail cell for half an hour? They'd open it up, and they go, they take out the light bulb, and they put in their color-corrected light bulb, and they would shoot this whole thing. The whole video, when it was done, the whole movie cost them $9,000 to shoot.
Wow.
And that whole budget was basically film development, which you don't have now. So that ended up being shot and then purchased by Weinstein's company, Miramax. What's
Miramax? Yeah.
Is it Miramax?
Yeah, Miramax.
For like $300 million, purchased it, and then they did the big budget sequels. But really interesting in this book, he was like, "What are you shooting on today? Your aunt's camera. If that's what you have, need a jib? Well, then figure it out. Need a dolly? Use a wheelchair, or use one of the strollers from a grocery store." It's like, it does not matter what gear you use. It matters that you have a story. So that's the next challenge. It's like, get the minimum set of technology to get the job done. They already have about almost 100% of it just by having a cell phone. But once they have that, it's like, what can you do? It's now the excuses are taken away. It's like, you've got to be compelling. You've got to find something to say in a way that people haven't said it, or a way that at least keeps people around while you're saying it. So
yeah, you have to keep their attention. I mean, if you don't keep their attention, they're gone. Yeah.
That's the true challenge.
Where would you put the most emphasis if you're super budget constrained? Would you put it on the filming of the video, or would you put it on the editing of the video?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's like, you know, for audio, the mixer's a big deal, man. The mixer can really save something, you know, that was maybe not recorded so spectacularly, but I don't know. I'm just curious.
You can, but there is that. I mean, just like in audio, I mean, if something is completely just distorted and peaked, I mean, there's not a lot you can do with that.
Right.
Same with video. You know, if somebody sends me video footage and it's completely blown out, just so bright that I can't see any details on the person's face, there's not a lot you can do to save that. You know, I mean, I can bring the exposure down as much as possible, but there's still just no detail there. It's just all white pixels, and so the filming is very important. I mean, getting it decent in the beginning is key, and
But with an
you can do so
iPhone,
much.
with an iPhone, it's going to kind of help you with that. It's going to like
Yeah.
continually adjust so that, hey, it's too bright. It's going to go and do itself. Not like you have like a cinema camera where you have to set every setting.
Right. Well, that's a very good point there that you said. Yeah. So it has auto exposure, on like an iPhone. So yeah, you're right. It's constantly adjusting everything, which in the beginning, that's great. That helps you, down the road, you're going to find that you don't like that so much, because not only is it, to change that exposure, it might be changing my shutter speed and, frame rates and just adjusting everything to keep the image looking the same. So if I'm really trying to put out a professional looking video, that may not be what I want, but if you're shooting by yourself, that you may not have an option. I mean, that may be your best tool, to have, instead, because you don't have the money to pay people to stand by to watch cameras for you and adjust settings and things like that, so it's
And I don't think there's any excuse. It's like, if you want this bad enough, you need to take a certain amount of accountability. Would you rather sit at home for a year and not do videos, or would you rather take the bullet and learn how to edit? Right? I mean, YouTube, when I was editing the film, which was like, when we got done shooting this film, I had 1.4 terabytes worth of video and audio. And that's for those of you that don't know, that's a lot. That's 1,400 gigabytes. That's a lot of content. So I'm sitting down and starting to pour through all this and try to tell this story, and it was overwhelming. But the one thing that saved me was, like, I'd call Shawn a bunch and I'd say, hey, Shawn, what do you know about this? Hey, I'm having this problem. What do you think of this? But the real savior was going on YouTube every 15 minutes. What do I want? Oh, I want split screens that do this and this. Okay, let me find a plugin. Okay, now let me go watch a tutorial on this plugin. Okay, I want to do something where it goes fast motion and then slowly vectors down to this speed and then stays at that speed and then vectors up to this speed. How do you do that? Okay, YouTube. And it's literally, I got an education on editing when I was editing that film. I got an education where it was like, I would argue that it's like doing a thesis, that you're just like, it's practically applied knowledge. Everything you need to know on how to edit for any genre of video is on YouTube. And there's people that will show you all the tricks, all the eye candy, all the things you need to do to make your videos sort of like jump off the screen. They'll show you that on YouTube. It's all right there. And if you want to say something, it's your duty, like a songwriter's duty to pitch their song. It's your duty to edit your video. So I would say that they should shoot it as good as they can. If you're using auto features, you probably won't have some of the issues. And then when you get it to the edit, just hunker down and do the first one. Make your second one better than your first one. This is your responsibility as an artist until you have somebody that says, hey, you've got so many followers that you need to spend more time shooting content than editing content. We'll put somebody in the chair to edit it, to pay them, because we've got too big of an audience and it's a waste of your time financially to be there. That's what we need to do. I think it's really cool that you gave people a way to shoot video at a high level and a compelling level, and there's a budget attached to it. And for about $1,500 to $2,000, depending on what pieces you can maybe leave one of the pieces off or two of the pieces off. The lighting, depending on where you're shooting and whatnot, and the microphone, those two alone are going to add up to $500. So in essence, when you say that this will shoot 90% of your needs, 90% of that, what you'll be shooting of that 90% will really only need your camera. It's not going to need a mic and a light, depending on your situation. You'll need them. But let's face it, you could shoot compelling video, make sure you have good natural light, So we're talking about something that you can have a turnkey solution for. And it's really something that's like, oh, I could do this in this amount of time. How do I do this? I sign all my birthday money and Christmas money that my friends and family are going to give me. And then on top of that, I go ahead and I just work my butt off so I can get this stuff. So,
yeah, and you had a good point there. You don't have to have the lighting. I mean, lighting is huge, but you don't have to purchase light. Use natural light.
Do you
But
have a light on you right now?
I have a little bit of light on me right here from a ring light, a LED ring light.
Turn it off. Can you turn it off? Okay.
So I just have, it's just a little bit of fill. I have my light fixture above me, kind of shining light on my head here. And the screen, actually the iMac screen is lighting me mostly.
I see it on your face there. Go ahead and turn your light back on. I want to see what it looks like. Yeah, I get it.
Just adds a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do natural light, then the biggest key to that is planning. So you have to, I mean, if you're going to shoot outdoors, you know, it's like, okay, I have to plan this. What time of day? You know, you don't necessarily want to do like in the middle of the day when the sun's directly overhead. You know, it's really bright, really harsh. So you're going to be going for the morning time or that evening time as the sun is coming down. It gets less harsh as it, you know, as it comes over to the horizons. And so you have to plan. You're like, okay, what time of day am I going to do this? It's going to be outdoors. You know, cloudy days. Sometimes cloudy days work great. I mean, the clouds actually are like a natural diffuser. You know, they diffuse the light for you. Just planning.
I wanted to ask you, and it just jumped right out of the top of my mind. What were you just talking about? Oh yeah, bounce cards.
Yeah.
They're like, you can go and just get a white sheet of poster board.
Absolutely.
And
they have those thicker poster boards that are kind of corrugated plastic, but they're, you know, like a thick of cardboard, but they're white.
And if somebody's in an interview and you have somebody you prop it up against something and it shines light back on them, you'd be blown away. You'd be like, oh my God, when you see the image, like the difference. And it's literally, I don't know what you can buy those for. You go to Walmart. I'm sure it's like, I think I bought some poster board for like $9 for a crate of 3 of them, you know, like corrugated poster board like that. But a white one, and it bounces back all this light. I mean, there are simple solutions too. And keep in mind, if you are somebody that's a vlogger or something else, you don't have the ability to run around with extra lighting or extra microphones. It's just going to be your camera and you. And sometimes you need to say, hey, the content's more important than the shot composition. You know, I've got to make sure the content's there. And if it requires me to be shooting with a GoPro on the side of my helmet, that's the one. So it's not like you can put lighting on a dude on a motorcycle and a helmet. And, you know, you're just going to be capturing content to tell the story. So,
yeah, but that goes back to planning though. So like if that's my only option, then if he's driving a motorcycle with a GoPro in his helmet, now I have to think about which direction is he driving? Is he driving into the sun, away from the sun, you know, perpendicular to the sun? So if you plan it correctly, you can completely utilize, you know, natural light in a good way.
Great point. Yeah, there'd be nothing worse than going right into the sun for certain applications if you have anything of context in front of you on the road. Right?
Right, exactly. Unless that's what you're going for. You know, he's driving off into the sunset. That's different. But yeah. And it's just planning, you know, like, oh, hey, I'm going to do a little vlog here and I'm outside. Well, look around you, you know, where can I get that the sun is not so harsh and I'm not completely in the shadows? Or if I am kind of in the shadows, is there somebody there with the poster board that can bounce the light back on my face?
Right.
And it would make that image look so much better.
Let's talk a little bit about when people do actually, okay, we've given them a solution like, okay, 9 out of 10 times you don't need Shawn Hudgins to come shoot something for you. And this is what you need to do that 9 out of 10 times. The 1 out of 10 times that they need Shawn Hudgins for, what does that look like for them? Let's say I want to shoot a music video, right? Or if I want you to come in and cover me at a recording session or a live performance. What does it take for me to get Shawn Hudgins out with his gear? And you've got a ton of gear. What does it take for me to get you to come out and shoot the night?
Well, usually a phone call. Yeah, a phone call. And we just have to establish, you know, how much involvement am I going to be a part of this? And how much time is it going to take me? And how much equipment do I have to bring? You know, those are all factors that are going to ultimately decide, you know, how much it's going to cost. Give me
an example. Let's say I want you to come. Like, do you have a regular car day rate, or is everything flexible for you? Is everything morphable into a budget?
To me, it's can be changed. You know, it's like I can morph to whatever the budget is in a lot of cases. But that might mean that we have to forego some of the things. You know, so you know we can't decide on a budget like, okay, I can afford this. and I say, okay, well, that's going to include just this, me with one camera, no lights, I'm just going to come and cover you.
Right.
It can't change later. Like, oh, hey, can we bring lights? And, the price is going to change, because most of the time I'm doing this by myself, because what I found was to meet these budgets that independent artists have, I can't afford, or they, neither one of us can afford for all these extra hands, So, we just have to sit down and plan out, like, what is it you're wanting, your ultimate goal here?
So if it's not on the screen, it's hard to pay for. Like,
right.
So it's like the idea is like, okay, let's keep it all on the screen, every dollar we spend. So we can't have somebody that's just a paid runner to go do things for the day that doesn't end up on the screen.
Right.
Tell me, like, if you're shooting a music video from start to scratch or start to finish, what is a plausible budget version of that, and what is like, okay, if I really had my way, I'd want to shoot it this way, and it would cost us this much?
Yeah, I think, like, if we're saying the bottom dollar, you could probably do something for $1,000, and because what happens a lot of times, same with creating music, is you don't see all the behind the scenes. Like, most of the time they look at it and go, oh, they showed up for 4 to 6 hours and we filmed that, and they're charging X amount. Well, they don't realize there was 10 hours before I even showed up, planning things out, charging batteries, getting gear together, loading it up, hauling it there. So there's just a lot of man hours that go into that. And then the editing process, which the editing process, I mean, it can be hours and hours to put something together. So, you could do something probably for $1,000 and then just go up from there.
How many hours do you think you have totally in on that $1,000 budget shooting a music video? Like, does it take you 30 hours?
He's doing it for the love at that point.
And I do that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could easily see 30 hours. I mean, simple. I mean, 10 hours of, or let's say 5 to 10 hours of prepping and planning out, and, maybe storyboarding an idea for the video, and then from the day that you're loading up to go do the shoot, by the time you're said and done, there's another 10-hour day, and easily 10 hours of editing. Because what people don't realize is either, it's like you have all this footage, and if we shot multiple takes or multiple cameras, I have to go back, and now you got to offload all that footage onto your computer. You have to organize all that footage, which we kind of label that as media management. And that can take hours to to organize it. And it's a necessary evil, because if I don't organize it, then it's just going to make the editing process even longer, because I'm going to keep fumbling, looking for things. And so, and Joe, I know you know this because you've sat there with, 1.4 terabytes of footage.
The thing that I didn't realize in this last run we did with Shawn, and I've watched Joe do this as well, is the physicality involved in this. You're down, you're on your knees, like filming upwards, and it's like my back hurts watching it. Like it's crazy, the physicality involved in filming stuff to me. Just the weight of the camera all day long. It's like you looked wiped out at the end of some of those days, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. The weight of the camera is huge, especially if you're toting this thing all day. Like with Shaq, we covered the OTO boys, and there's 5 of these guys. And so it takes a lot of coverage, which means basically we don't know what they might do in one split second. So I'm having to roll camera constantly, and you're having to hold this. So that's an important point, because all of us want that big cinema camera, the Red or the these great cinema cameras, but those rigs get big and heavy, and so they don't apply to every shoot. So like if we're doing that reality type stuff, it may make sense to go with a smaller mirrorless camera on a gimbal or just handheld to get that footage. But it is very physical. I mean, after a while, your back starts hurting, your shoulders.
I feel like too, when you're doing like one of these shoots that have like a Sony Red or something like that, they're using those little carts that they push. Like somebody's not holding that thing the whole day like you are. Like
no, that's a planned out.
Yeah, you're doing like the
Or they have those what look
what
like
they run and shoot stuff, you know.
they have those what looks like a fishing thing.
Yes.
Like it's like somehow attached to the waist and comes above with like a hangs off like, for lack of a better word, a fishing pole and down on a string, and the camera's hanging in front of them, like center of gravity stuff.
They call them easy rigs. Yeah, it's like a vest you put on, and it's got this pole that comes up and bends and comes over your head. So then a cable comes down and helps alleviate the weight of that camera. So it takes something like that. But, you know, usually when you're using those bigger cinema cameras, you know, the shoot is planned. You know, you've got directors and producers, and it's like, okay, we're about to do that shot. So then you grab the camera. You know, you're not holding it the entire time.
Exactly.
Which, you know, would make it very, very difficult.
Very difficult.
So, but yeah, I mean, there's times I find myself laying on the ground, you know, looking up at the camera, or sometimes I'm contorting myself like in positions just to get that one shot. Yeah. And I feel it for the next couple of days for sure, you know.
So we've talked about a lower budget shoot in you know, let's say if you're doing a music video, you're saying it's the bottom would be $1,000.
I would say so. Yeah, that's what it's going to take by the time you spend, you know, 30 hours of getting stuff together and editing and shooting.
The high end on that is for like not a total production company shoot, but like a one-man shoot like you, it'd be what?
I mean,
$5,000?
Yeah, 3,000 to 5,000 easy. You know, you start getting up there.
You start to add a jib.
Every time we add a component, we're having to rent equipment. You know, it's like anything. It's like, it doesn't sound like a lot, all the little pieces, but when you start adding it up, you're like, oh, wait, how did we get here? You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
Well, I think it's interesting, you know, like, okay, if it's $1,000 on the cheap side, it makes that rig that's going to shoot 90% of your video a lot more affordable when you think like, wait a minute, it's just 2 music videos, you know?
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously the natural step above your, you know, iPhone would be going up to like a DSLR or a mirrorless type camera. Of course, then the expenses just start to go up because now you got different lenses you have to get.
And
so
it becomes very logistically challenging too. You've got to start to learn about irises, and you know, you've got to start to become a student of the art of filmmaking. You know, okay, it's really cool to have that blurry bokeh behind you, but the reality is it means that you can only move 6 inches this way before your nose goes out of focus.
Right.
6 inches this way. You know, and some of the focal ranges are smaller than that, right?
Absolutely.
When you start to get big, expensive shotgun mics and point them down at someone, if they lean forward to talk, they're out of. So there's the margin. You know, yes, the quality is going to be higher, but the margin for error is slimmer on all of those instances. And
which requires the extra people, extra hands. Somebody's got to be watching all those elements. Yeah.
And I guess at the end of the day, it's like, what is Paramount? Paramount is content, telling your story, and finding a way to do that that's bulletproof. And I think, you know, this $2,000 solution, $1,500 to $2,000 solution we talked about is going to probably have much more impact on you telling your story than all the high-tech stuff, right? Good mics, compressors, audio recorders, video, mirrorless cameras, lenses, LCD monitors, on and on, jibs, stabilizers, you know, rolling, you know, pan scan.
Sliders, yeah.
You start getting, the reality is 90% of what you need to do can be covered by what we spent most of today talking about, which is like, hey, this is the pragmatic solution. Now here's your real challenge. What's your story? What do you have to tell us? You now have our attention. You have a nationwide distribution platform that literally all it takes is you to upload the video, and someone in Bangladesh can watch what you were about to say. Now, what are you going to say? Who are you? Why are you compelling? Why should I waste 3 minutes, or for that matter, 6 seconds on your TikTok video? What do you have to say? And that's where the room gets real quiet.
Yeah, because you ask most people, I don't know. Yeah, it's not just what you want to say. I mean, so obviously you want to grab that person that just clicked on your video. You want to grab their attention. But now what can I do to make them want to share it? You know, I want them to be on my team now. I want them to be hyped up and be like, oh, you got to see this, you know? So that's the second part of that puzzle. It's like, how do I get their attention? But now how do I make them want to share it?
Well, thank you very much for giving us the skinny on this. We figured, man, isn't it such a cool thing? First of all, you're such a cool dude. You're one of the people that when I recommend you, and I've probably recommended you to all of my friends, right? Anybody who's talked to me about needing video, I've recommended you, and you are the one recommendation that I've given that people come back and consistently thank me for making the introduction. So that's a real statement on you. And having worked with you, the stuff you shoot is fantastic. You're super smart in any problem that arises. If you're in the middle of a national park, you could figure out a way to do something. So that's another, the pragmatism is there, as well as the work. The images are just undeniable. The gear is undeniable, and it's just the full package.
Well, so. I appreciate that, Joe and Shaq. I appreciate you guys. And, it says a lot too that, you guys bring me in to work with you guys, but you're the other half of that piece. You guys are professional. You know exactly what it is you want, and that's important. There's some people that come to me and they're like, I don't know what I want, I don't know what I need, but when I show up with you guys, it's like, okay, here's what we're doing. It's very professional, which helps us to get to that long-term goal,
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, these people just, the viewers just need to just start creating, don't do like what I've done in the past. I'm such a perfectionist that I would stare at a problem so long and never act on it and never just do. And so sometimes it's just a matter of just shoot it. It may not be great the first time, but that's okay. You're going to learn. Every video you do is going to get a little bit better and a little bit better. Yeah, you just have to start and not be scared of that. We shot a video up in Cincinnati of these kids, and it blew me away because here I am showing up with thousands of dollars of cameras. And the guy that runs the foundation, he said, hey, let's shoot this video on our iPhones. And it's not just iPhones. Let's use that VHS app you have on your iPhone that makes it look like an old beta cam. And I'm looking at him like, I just drove from Nashville up here with all this gear, and you want to shoot with the iPhone? And we shot this video with 2 iPhones, and purposely made it look like it was from the 80s. And it was almost an experiment at this point. And I was blown away. Within 3 months, it had like 2.5 million views. And it just showed me that it doesn't always matter about how great the image is. Right. It's about the content. People just loved what the kids were doing. The song was, a popular song, and it just took off.
I think that's a really valuable thing to say. It's like, get busy doing it. Like, don't wait to do your Godfather trilogy on a Panavision camera. Right. Do it on your phone and upload it directly to YouTube with no edits on the front and back. Just find something compelling and try to say something. Try to be compelling, learn from it, and then slowly grow your skill in your production, in your camera work, in your gear. It's like, I think that's a brilliant thing to tell.
Yeah, growing your gear, because you can't, if you wait around till you think that you have all the perfect gear to make the one video, you're going to wait a long time, so.
Yeah. And then it's like, giant drum roll. What do you got? Is there a lightning in a bottle? Who knows? You got to be doing all the time. And I guarantee you, if you've tried and failed 1,000 times before, you get to the point that you get on the Panavision camera, you're going to have something to say and know how to deal with it and know how to capture lightning in a bottle a lot better if you've done it 1,000 times. So where can people find you? ShawnHudgins.com?
Yeah, ShawnHudgins.com will take them to me. Right now, it goes to my Facebook page. As my site's being developed, it'll eventually repoint there. But yeah.
So if people want to hire you, that's where you're going to be at. Shawn's a great guy. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Shawn.
So we love you, buddy. And thanks for all the great insight. This is what people need to hear. The mission statement for our podcast is getting people into the conversation that they have no business or connection to be in. It's like you're eavesdropping in on a table of people who have the real deal answers. That's what I'd love for this to be, and give people a doorway into that world. And I think they really got it today. This is like a really pragmatic solution. Anyone can do this at a high level.
And there's no excuses, really. YouTube, like you said, it's like everything's there. Are you willing to take the time that it takes just to go find the answers?
Yeah.
Now, granted, sometimes the answers are hard to find because you know what it is you want to do. You just don't know how to word it. You don't know what it's called. But, after you search long enough, you'll find the answers. And it's all right there on YouTube. You just have to watch through some advertisements maybe, but it's free.
Or you can hire a guy like Shawn and have it all done for you perfectly.
True. Very true.
But this is the cool thing about Shawn. He doesn't want you to spend the $1,000 or $5,000 on him when you can be doing it yourself. It's like he knows that there's enough work for him above and beyond that. So that's a cool place to come from. So thank you, buddy, for coming on. That's it. We'll see you next time for the West Barn.